So how are you?
Excellent, excellent. Enjoying the return of the sun. That's, in Geneva we get a lot of fog, as you might remember. So this is great to have the sun coming back.
Right.
It's great to be in confinement, so I can watch the sun from home. That's all good. Happy to have this lockdown.
Nice, man.
And yeah.
So I have to say, like, what I really like about the designs you guys have been up to is that they are like really intelligent quotations of different time narratives in the Heuer / TAG Heuer history. And I think that this watch is, or this family of watches is a really nice example of that, right? I mean, you have, of course, there's a hero piece that's very much inspired by the 844 and the inner sort of red numeral 24-hour, indexes. But you also have like a lot of, great design codes that come from the Aquaracer since its inception in 2004. But why don't you tell me where you guys began, what was the mission, and what you wanted to achieve with it?
Well, as you pointed out, there is the mix of both. One of the key things you wanted to do was make sure that it stayed very much an Aquaracer. I mean, if you look at the whole history from the Heuer dive watches through to Aquaracer, it's actually quite linear. The thing that I think is cool about the Aquaracer is that compared to a lot of other watches on the market, it's a collection it's a little bit like a shark. It hasn't stopped swimming. It started with the 844, moved on to the 1000, 2000 Aquaracer, and every time it kept moving forward in terms of design. And that's not something we wanted to stop. So it is very much an Aquaracer. It's still got the very, strong geometry, the quite angular lugs. It's got the 12-sided bezel. What we've done with the Aquaracer side of things is we've brought in some work on the fit and finish. We've worked on the proportions to make sure it's a very wearable watch. Some of the things you'll notice if you compare the one that we have today and the one that we're introducing is that we've added exactly. So if you look at that's excellent. If you look at the lugs, you can see that the overall shape is Aquaracer. You have this facet running along the outside of the lugs, which actually comes from the 844, and it lets us work with if you look at the watch from the side, what your eye catches on is the brushed finish. And this facet, which you can see is going from quite narrow to pretty wide, incidentally, like on the 844, lets us play with the shape of the side part at the same time that it lets us play with the geometry of the top view of the watch. And so from the side, we have actually, if you look at the Aquaracer, it's quite a sporty, quite a tough, dynamic look. In fact, this one, even though it's designed to look a little slimmer and wear really well on the wrist, from the side, it has a very aggressive, very dynamic profile. And you can't even quite see it in this picture, but from a true side view, you can see that it emphasizes the crown protection, which gets a little bit higher. And then it goes a little bit thicker, sort of at the junction between the crown protector and the case. And then it narrows out at the end. And so it's a very dynamic profile. We working on the proportions. The bezel is a little slimmer compared to exactly here. You can see what I mean. So you can see that we have almost like wings coming out from the crown protector towards the tips of the horns. You can see that we have a nice proportion between the side of the bezel and the crown protector. We still have a lot of strength in the horns, which is a feature of Aquaracer. We've slimmed down the strap a little bit. The overall design is very much based on Aquaracer, but we've played with the position of the facets. We've played with the thickness of the strap. We've played with the integration into the central strap element, which is connected to the case. So there's really, it's Aquaracer, and that we've looked at every single detail on the watch. On the bezel, you can see the knurling around the sides, and that was a carryover from the 844. We basically we kept the Aquaracer and we went back to the 844 to bring in some additional depth to the design, and to make sure that we have a modern watch, and it's modern in the sense that it's super wearable. It's, as I said, it's more dynamic from the side view. It's kept all the ruggedness and all the 6 features of our previous Aquaracers, so it's very much the dive watch, but it's got a little more depth to it. There's knurling on the side adds to that. If you look at the magnifying glass, you can see that it's now at 6 o'clock. We're going towards a 6 o'clock position for the dates on all of our watches going forward, and so the Aquaracer already took that on board. The magnifying glass, rather than being on the outside of the glass, is cut underneath. First of all, it leaves us a smooth glass that doesn't catch on things. And actually, with this date magnifier, we have a wider angle of view of the date, so you can see it. You can see it from more wrist positions. I think one of the things that you can't see in the designs is we've also re-engineered the bezel turning mechanism, and we have a very precise 1 click per minute feel, where we used to have 2 clicks per minute. We've got a quieter mechanism. We've worked on the tension, we worked on the sound, we worked on the feel. And so you can't see this from the outside, but it's a very nice bezel. One of the things that you'll see that you would clearly see, Wei, is on the back of the watch. The case back is now oriented 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Our dive helmet is always upright, and we did this by re-engineering the way the case back is made. It's actually made in 2 pieces, one of which holds the design and the other which tightens it down. So this allows us to create the proper tension for the waterproofing and still have the design in the right position. So that's the case back. Then on the case back, you'll see the dive helmet. We've had a dive helmet for a very long time, but one of the things we brought into the new watch, and you can see it on the outside of the engraving, is we have the 12-sided shape there, which comes from the front bezel of the watch, which is basically one of the standout features of the Aquaracer. From a couple meters away, we have the 12 sides, and that's one of the hallmarks of Aquaracer. So we have that on the back. We've also designed a dive helmet which takes into account these facets. And so this is really our dive helmet. It's more modern. We've got a hexagon background, which also makes it very modern and keeps the idea of facets going through the whole design. So I think that's the outside of the watch. Moving into the dial, we've got some more changes. We talked about the 844 a bit, and in the new dial, we've gone back to that very dive watch look with the strong markers at 12, 3, 6, and 9, and with the smaller markers for the other eight positions. On the 844, those smaller markers were round. We've made them into octagons. So the whole watch has a coherent look and feel going through it. So we still have a very clear dive watch look with the strong markers 12, 3, 6, and 9. We've kept the overall shape of the markers on 12, 3, 6, and 9 from the previous Aquaracers. We've changed the proportions a little bit. The 12 o'clock one is slightly bigger than the 3 and the 6. But you can see that we have a very geometric look and feel going through there. One of the things we've kept from the Aquaracer is also the grooves going through the dial from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. We've changed the spacing a little bit of the grooves. The whole, like I said, it's still the Aquaracer and nothing's exactly the same. So we've rethought the positions of the grooves. There you go. So you can see the grooves. You can see how they come up to the date and leave some space around that. Here you can see the octagons on the markers, and the octagons are positioned so that the outside edge is following the curve of the dial. And so even though they're edgy, the whole thing works together. You can see up close, we've also changed the font on the numbers a little bit. It's a little less bold. The line weight's been adjusted a little bit. The line weight of the grooves has been adjusted a little bit. So a lot of detail work there. On the dial, you notice that we have different hands. If you look at the history of the collection, in the 2004 aquagraphs, we had a sort of flared hand, and we've pushed that quite a bit further here. You can see that the minute hand is very much in line with the TAG Heuer rectangular hand with a triangular tip feel. The hour hand, it's essentially like that, except that we've flared the tip a lot so that we have a strong difference between the hour and the minute hand. Again, in the tour watches and dive watches, you don't want any mistaking the hours and the minutes. And so we work the hands. If you look at the minute track, previously the indexes actually went out through the minute track. Here we've kept the minute track intact, and we have emphasized the 5-minute markings, but the main idea is that they work both for what's happening inside the dial and also with the turning bezel, because we wanted to be clear, to be able to tie these minute markers in the minute track with the turning bezel so that you can count the individual minutes against the turning bezel and not just against the hour and minute hands. So there's that.
You've
There's
used
some other
colored loom as well, right, for the hour and minute hand.
We have different loom. We've got green on the hours, blue on the minutes, as you can see. And so you can see the position of the minutes and the seconds versus the triangle on the bezel. Maybe one last thing. We're talking about the strap. We have a new adjustable buckle. And it's not only micro adjustable, but it also adjusts over 15 millimeters, which means that it goes from a city watch to a dive watch at the press of a button. So you can see how long the extension area is. And so that lets us wear it over a wetsuit without changing the buckle, without actually changing any geometry of the buckle.
Yeah, really cool. I think the first thing that I noticed about the watch when I looked at the design was, first of all, it looked incredibly wearable, right? Like I loved how sleek the profile looked, and I think that that's really a response to what people are looking for today. I mean, people want watches with a presence on the wrist that are sporty, but they want it to be wearable and a little bit more elegant. Right? Then the second thing is like I think the watch is composed of almost like 90% straight lines, right? Which is very distinct from anything else. In fact, aside from the crown guards, I think almost everything else is straight. Like the bezel, the exterior of the bezel is 12-sided. The crown is 12-sided. Every index has got 8 sides to it. Even the pattern on the back of the case back is 12-sided, and then you've got the decoration of the hexagons. And I think that creates a very nice sense of dynamic tension to the watch. It feels exciting. It feels like it's got kind of a sense of almost like energy to it, right? Which I think is dope. And then at the same time, I love the idea that you've really resolved so many different, pragmatic aspects for a diving watch, right? So I love the fact that, the idea of using different colored loom, one for the minute, because all you really want to know is the minutes when you're diving, right? And that reflected by the inverted triangle that's the starting point for your dive also being in blue loom, it's super smart. What I would like to know is, because you created basically a whole family of these. So you've got 2 sizes, 36 and 43, right? And then even within the 43 family, you've got 3 different versions, right? Because you've got a steel version that's got in a couple of different dials. Then you have a version that I really dig, which is a grade 2 titanium watch with a green ceramic bezel insert. And then that one actually has more loom, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you've got the minutes, the whole bezel.
Right. That to me is sick, right? I love that version of that watch. And I love also the color of the grade 2 titanium, which is a little bit darker.
It's a little bit grayer. It's a little bit yellower actually too. It's a bit warmer. Also feels great on the skin. And obviously the watch is lighter. So.
Yes. And then you've got the hero piece as well, which is the 100-piece limited edition that's in grade 5 titanium. And then it's got that 844 kind of inspired dial, which is pretty dope too, right?
Yeah, I mean, the idea was also, rather than just making replicas of the past, is what can we take from the past, which actually shows how well our products have gone through the ages, and still bring back some cool details that people think, okay, why do you have this square design with the red numerals? I mean, it's very easy to point to and explain where it came from, and it's still very useful today. I mean, not everybody is used to using 24-hour time, and so this actually, just like in the old days, lets people mark off a chart or just read the time. Okay, it's 15:37. It's not, so
Yeah.
very useful. And I think this watch, honestly, I have to say, is my personal favorite of the three, just because to me it screams tool watch, but it's still super. It's today's tool watch.
Yeah.
It's today's form language. It's today's readability. It's today's build quality. We've still got the same cool strap from the 844, but we've got these facets in it, so it's not a vintage strap. It's
Even the
it's
holes
a
are
modern strap.
right?
Yes.
That's so there really is almost no straight lines on these.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I dig this, and I love the fact that you use different grades of titanium for different applications. Right. So
it lets us on this one. It lets us play with the finish as well. So we still have a high-end finish, but the lightness of titanium, the coolness of the design, and everything. I love the watch.
Yeah, really dope. And then I also quite like the women's watches as well, or the 36 size. And I like the blue one because it's got like diamond indexes.
Exactly. And you don't notice them right away because they fit with the design of the watch and everything, but they do have that little sparkle.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's still clearly a dive watch, but there's a little nod to to the sparkle and to the waves and so on. So rather than having the horizontal grooves, this is actually taken from a dial design we actually had in the outgoing Aquaracers. But here you can see that the edges of the waves are just a little bit sharper, and so we do have the horizontal lines, but broken into the waves. I think it looks really cool with the diamonds.
Yeah, really good. And I love the fact that you've kept the octagonal indexes and just set a round diamond instead of them, which
and a very nice blue.
Yes. Yeah, it's a really well resolved and really cool new diving watch. And I also like the fact that it's like providing a lot of value as well for that watch too, right? I mean, it's
huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's we're not defining the watch by price. We're really defining it by design, which I think is really nice, and the fact that, as you say, it has a lot of value and it's got a huge amount of perceived value.
Fantastic. Well, Guy, I think you crushed it, dude. Really, really cool new watch. Thank you for sharing it with me. Like I said, I'm kind of torn between the 100-piece limited edition in grade 5, but I super dig the grade 2 titanium version as well with that green dial. I think it's great.
I agree.
I haven't had it on my wrist yet. I hope I'll be able to put it on soon, but it looks incredibly wearable. And like I said, the coolest thing that anyone could have done for this year is to launch a really fun, beautiful, value proposition diving watch. It's got a great design because I'm going to be jumping into the water as soon as I possibly can.
I mean, one of the things Titiana is working on also is working with all the different governments to make sure they release lockdown right when we bring the watch out. So that, just to play with what you were saying.
Well done, Titiana.
We're going. But you do touch on a point that I didn't mention about the case. I don't want to carry this on too long. But one of the things that we did do is, although it's very much the geometry of the Aquaracer, the lugs are shorter, they're steeper, and when you get it on your wrist, you'll realize that it works on. And you show it around as well. It works on all sizes of wrist. It's a super wearable watch.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I did notice. I actually really dig the lugs because they're very powerful feeling. Yeah. They're short, but I love the facet on them. That, kind of polished, very angular bezel is like it's got a nice, very aggressive kind of feel to it. But you don't see the polish edge here because it's grade 2, which is you can't.
No, on the grade 2 you don't. You notice it on the grade 5 and on the steel ones.
Here. Yeah, it's super cool here too.
Super cool.
Yeah, I dig this watch too.
Sorry.
Green.
this watch with the agree on the green, I love green. But also what's cool about this one is with that facet, even though it's not polished, the way that it reflects light still makes it work, and it actually brings a lot of dynamics, very speedy look to the lug. So even though the watch is wearable in a traditional sense, the watch has actually become, in my mind, speedier, a little sportier, a little more dynamic with all this work. So very happy with it.
Totally. Great job, Guy. It was wonderful seeing you. I'm wishing you a great digital Watches and Wonders. I'm sure they're keeping you very busy. Much. And I hope to catch up with you in person soon.
Cool. Me too.